Have you ever wondered why there are women who don't seem to have to strive so hard to succeed, yet everything seems to find its way to them? Without noise, without competition, they naturally inspire respect, affection, and trust. They do not chase opportunities, opportunities chase them. They do not need to prove anything, their mere presence is enough to make others listen. Carl Jung once said that within every human being exist two streams of energy, one that acts and one that receives. When the world becomes overly focused on action, on doing more, achieving more, and proving oneself, we forget the other half, feminine energy. And it is precisely this forgotten energy that holds the key to the sacred path towards success, a path not based on striving, but on harmony with the rhythm of the universe. In today's video, we will go deeper into what Carl Jung called the realm of the feminine soul, where feminine energy becomes the doorway to an entirely different kind of success. This is not about success tips or strategies to achieve more, but about a kind of success that arises not from effort, but from alignment, not from control, but from trust and presence. Are you ready to embark on this journey of discovery? Number 1. When success is no longer a race, but a journey home. There comes a stage that almost everyone passes through, a stage where we think we are advancing far, but are actually getting lost. We work relentlessly, striving to prove our worth, to be recognized, to feel enough. Yet the further we go, the emptier we feel. The more we possess, the further we drift from ourselves. Until one day we realize, perhaps what we were searching for was never at the end of the road, but at the starting point, the place we left behind. And that is when the true journey begins, the journey home. When Jung spoke of success, he wasn't referring to wealth or power. He spoke of individuation, the process by which the soul becomes whole, when the ego gradually unites with the self. In that sense, success is not about achieving, but about returning. True success is not measured by how many steps you climb, but by whether you can still hear your inner voice once you stand at the top. Modern women are taught to be strong, competent, and to prove that they are not inferior to anyone. Society glorifies masculine energy, action, logic, control, so much that many forget the sacred feminine within, the part that feels, trusts, listens, and knows when to pause. But feminine energy does not come to compete. It comes to balance. It reminds us that there is another path to success, a quiet, gentle, but profound one, the path of return. Imagine yourself standing on a crowded road where everyone is rushing. The noise convinces you that you must also run, or you'll be left behind. Then one day you stop, not out of exhaustion, but because you suddenly realize, where am I running to? In that moment, amidst the chaos, you begin to hear your own breath again. Not everyone who runs fast is moving forward. Sometimes they're just spinning in circles. That is the first step of the journey home, realizing that success is not a destination, but a harmony. Jung once wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Wholeness doesn't come from eliminating what's imperfect, but from integrating both the light and the dark, the strength and the softness." For many women, this journey is not easy. They live their whole lives trying to please their parents, their bosses, their lovers, and society. They are used to doing well, proving themselves. And then one day, they burn out. A businesswoman once said, "I have everything: career, finances, reputation. But when I come home, I feel nothing. That sentence is the soul's whisper. It's time to come home. Feminine energy does not push or demand. It observes, receives, and trusts. It understands that the universe has its own rhythm. We don't have to force life to follow our plans. When a woman reconnects with that energy, she stops trying to create success and begins to receive it. Everything comes to her, not because she chases it, but because she has become its magnetic field. Feminine success is not about running faster than others, but about walking slower than your own fear. Not about climbing higher, but about standing firmer in the place where you truly belong. When a woman finds joy in small actions, in how she listens, nurtures, or creates, even the simplest task becomes sacred. When you live in feminine energy, you understand that success is not a reward, but a reflection of your inner state. You don't have to chase the light. You only need to clear the mirror of your soul, and the light will appear on its own. And then, everything in your life, work, love, finances, becomes a vessel through which your soul expresses itself. One day you will realize success is no longer a point of arrival. It is how you walk, the peace in each breath, the faith when certainty is gone. It is the journey from the ego, always fearful and comparative, to the self, where everything is already enough. And perhaps that is the opening step to everything that follows. Because to truly live in feminine energy, you must first dare to ask, what have I lost in my quest to prove myself? The answer lies in the next part. From the fear of being judged to the power of authenticity. Number 2. From the fear of being judged to the power of authenticity. Nothing drains a woman more than the constant need to maintain her image. We smile when we want to cry, pretend to be fine when our soul is breaking, or try to please everyone just to avoid judgment. Yet the price of perfection is distance from oneself. Every time we try to become someone others approve of, we move further from our sacred essence, the dwelling place of true feminine energy. Carl Jung once wrote, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." And from that, he revealed a profound paradox of modern life. Behind every mask is a soul longing to be seen. We fear exposure, yet we crave understanding. We fear being misunderstood, yet yearn to be truly seen. It is the silent battle between the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted, and the self, the authentic being constantly calling us home. The fear of judgment is the chain that binds many women. Since childhood, we were taught that to be loved, we must be good. To be respected, we must be strong. To be accepted, we must be perfect. These musts, over time, become a beautiful yet suffocating garment. We smile at compliments, yet inside there is an emptiness, the ache of never having been loved for who we truly are. Jung called this stage the conflict between the mask and the soul. When we live too long behind the mask, we forget the natural feeling of simply being ourselves. Every action, every word, even every dream becomes edited to fit expectations. But the more we strive to fit in, the further we drift from our true power, the power of authenticity. Authenticity is not about exposing everything, but about daring to exist without armor. It is being able to say, "I don't know, I'm scared, I need rest," without feeling guilty. It is the state of a free soul, no longer controlled by others' gazes. Imagine a flower. It doesn't try to be loved, nor does it adjust its scent or color to please anyone. It simply blooms, fully, silently, and true to its essence. That is the image of feminine energy that has transcended the fear of judgment. She doesn't need to convince anyone of her worth. Her mere, unpretentious presence is proof enough. I once knew a woman who was a marketing director at a major corporation. She was seen as the epitome of success, flawless in every presentation, every outfit, every word. Yet behind that perfection was constant fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of showing weakness, fear of being seen as inadequate. One day, during a meeting, she suddenly cried. She said, "I'm tired of being strong all the time. I'm afraid that if I show weakness, I'll lose respect." No one judged her. Instead, the room fell silent, and one by one, others began sharing their own fears. From that day on, she was no longer perfect, but became the most trusted leader. She discovered that authenticity does not diminish respect. It creates connection. Because people are not truly drawn to perfection, but to truth. When you are authentic, others feel safe to be authentic too. When you dare to be vulnerable, they feel permission to be human. And that is how feminine energy heals the world, not by proving, but by being present. Authenticity is the vibration of an unfiltered soul. It is not loud, but deeply resonant. Just as a still lake can reflect the entire sky, a truthful heart can reflect the light of life. When you live authentically, the world becomes more real to you. Everything begins to flow smoothly, because you no longer have to fight to maintain an illusion. In feminine energy, authenticity is a natural state. It needs no justification, no proof. For a woman who has touched her deepest self, no longer fears external eyes. She knows that true light doesn't come from being seen, but from daring to see herself. If the first part of the journey is returning, then this part is remaining. Remaining with yourself, not abandoning who you are, no matter how the world changes. Success then is no longer about being liked, but about not betraying your soul. If you've ever felt exhausted from keeping up appearances, or if you've had a moment of living truthfully and felt something deeply shift within you, share that story in the comments. Perhaps your small fragment of truth might touch someone standing at the crossroads between fear and courage, and help them realize that the sacred path to success does not begin by trying harder, but by daring to return to who they truly are. Number 3. Nurturing instead of competing. The path of sustainable influence. Once a woman rediscovers her authenticity, once she dares to remove the mask and show up as herself, a natural transformation begins to unfold. Her inner energy changes. From the desire to be recognized, she shifts toward the desire to connect. From the need to prove, she moves into the state of nurturing. And that is the highest level of feminine power, when she no longer needs to win over anyone, but becomes the one who helps everything around her grow. In the modern world, where everyone is taught, if you don't move forward, you'll be left behind, nurturing seems like too soft a word. We worship speed, efficiency, and results. But few realize, competition may create achievement, yet only nurturing creates impact. Carl Jung once wrote, "The anima is a personification of all feminine psychological tendencies, receptiveness to the irrational, capacity for personal love, feeling for nature." Feminine energy, with its capacity for receptivity, love, and connection with nature, is the foundation of life and creation itself. Imagine standing in a garden at dawn. No sound of machines, no pressure of time, only the smell of damp earth and the breath of the wind. You cannot command a seedling to grow faster, nor force a flower to bloom before its time. All you can do is tend, trust, and wait. And in that silence, life works quietly, roots deepen, leaves stretch upward, and the seed becomes a tree. Success through feminine energy is just like that. A woman becomes the gardener of her own soul, knowing when to care, when to let be, and when to simply trust that the seed already knows how to reach the light. In feminine energy, success is not measured by speed or position, but by the value she creates and how long it endures. She understands that no achievement built on fear or rivalry can last, because what comes from tension and comparison is temporary, so she chooses love over proving, listening over reacting, and supporting over controlling. That is also the lesson Demeter, the Greek goddess of harvest, left behind. When her daughter Persephone was taken to the underworld, Demeter did not start a war. She nurtured the earth with her love and longing. That love revived the land every time Persephone returned, and thus the seasons were born. It was her nurturing energy that made the universe move in the rhythm of love, not power. A woman leading a non-profit for children's education once shared her story. When asked about her leadership secret, she smiled. "I don't lead them. I nurture them." Every week, besides strategy meetings, she took time to ask each person about their feelings, joys, or struggles. Some said her approach wasn't efficient, but that care built a united, creative, resilient team. During crises, no one left. She didn't compete to retain them, she nurtured them to walk far together. As a result, their project outlasted organizations 10 times wealthier. Competition arises from fear of lack, that if others have, we lose. Nurturing arises from knowing that there is enough for all. When women stop comparing and proving, they not only bring peace to themselves, but spread abundance to others. At a deeper level, this is the energy of creation. Instead of consuming or depleting to win, she creates new value. When a woman lives nurturing energy, she becomes a center of harmony. Around her, others feel safe to be themselves. In her work, things flow naturally, without force. In love, she doesn't cling, she gives, and thus receives more. This is what makes her influence enduring, not because she controls, but because she inspires. If masculine energy says do, feminine energy whispers be. And when she becomes the energy of nurturing, the universe responds by giving her everything aligned with her frequency. Perhaps that is the sacred secret Jung meant. The path to success is not about who wins, but about who makes the world blossom after she passes through it. And then you realize, sometimes the greatest strength comes not from rising above, but from sowing back. It is not the best who wins, it is the most loving who endures. Number 4. Healing the wounded energy, when the soul is allowed to soften. When you learn to care for others with gentleness, you realize the most important truth. You too need to be cared for. And that is when real healing begins. Not through strength, but through allowing yourself to soften. In that moment, the deepest path to success, the sacred path of feminine energy, begins to open. From Jung's view, the shadow is the part of the psyche pushed into the unconscious, holding emotions and instincts we don't want to see. For many women, that shadow is tied to weakness, dependency, or the need to be loved. Society makes them believe that to be respected, they must be strong, rational, and independent, so they reject everything soft within themselves. But that rejection splits the soul and closes off life energy. When a woman dares to admit, "I have been afraid, I have been hurt, I have longed to be loved," that is not weakness, but the beginning of freedom. Because only when light reaches the darkest corners can the soul truly revive. And when the soul revives, feminine energy begins to flow again. An energy that doesn't chase success, but attracts it through wholeness. I once heard the story of Lara, a therapist in New York. She had spent her life helping others heal, but never allowed herself to feel. Growing up in a family where tears were considered weakness, she learned to hide pain to appear strong. When her mother passed away, she still went to work as usual. Until one day, a client said, "I just want someone to let me be sad for a while." That sentence broke her. For the first time, she allowed herself to fall apart, not as a healer, but as a human with a feeling heart. From those tears, she became deeper, more compassionate, and her career entered a new phase. She no longer pursued success. She attracted it through authentic presence. That is the essence of feminine healing. Not controlling pain, but opening to feel it fully. Only when you allow yourself to break can the soul have space to be reborn. And when the soul is reborn, energy transforms, from tension to flow, from struggle to ease. In that state, success is no longer a goal, but the natural result of inner harmony. Science supports this too. When we repress emotions, sadness, fear, anger, the body stays in constant stress, fast heartbeat, tense muscles, high cortisol. Over time, we become fatigued, sleepless, burned out. That's why so many strong women end up exhausted. Conversely, when we allow ourselves to cry, breathe deeply, or share, the body activates the relaxation system, heart rate slows, breath steadies, happy hormones release. Scientists call it emotional release, the process of freeing trapped emotions. When we stop resisting feelings and let them flow, the body, mind, and energy align, the biological foundation of magnetism and sustainable success. Many women fear emotions because they think emotions make them weak. But emotions, when heard, are the language of the soul. When you are sad, your body is not betraying you, it's saying something needs to be held. When you're angry, it signals a boundary has been crossed. When you cry, it's not failure, it's how the heart cleanses itself, allowing energy to move again. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And that is the essence of the feminine journey, where she doesn't try to overcome pain, but dissolves into it, to realize that pain is simply another form of unacknowledged love. When she reaches that depth, every aspect of her life begins to move accordingly. Relationships become more genuine, opportunities arrive naturally, and everything starts flowing toward her without force. Because ultimately, healing is not about becoming stronger, it's about becoming whole. When the darkness is seen, it loses its power. When tears fall, the heart opens. And when a woman allows herself to feel, she opens the door to the deepest layer of feminine energy, where power lies not in control, but in trust, that when you are in harmony with yourself, success will find you. And what about you? If you feel something soft melting inside, as if a long-suppressed part of you is finally allowed to breathe, leave the word healing in the comments. not to say you've overcome, but to affirm that you're returning. Because sometimes a single word, a small acknowledgement, is enough for the soul to begin to awaken. Number 5. Knowing when to pause and be silent, so the divine can act. There comes a stage in every soul's journey when action no longer yields results. You work harder, try more, pray more, yet everything seems still. Not because you're lost, but because the divine is asking you to stop. In the modern world, we are taught that stopping means failure, that silence is weakness. But in feminine energy, the pause is not an ending, it is the sacred ritual of trust. Because when the mind stops stirring, the flow of divine orchestration begins. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When we stop trying to control everything, the unconscious, the deepest part of the soul, can finally guide us. Silence is the bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the ego and the self, between human effort and divine will. In feminine energy, doing less is not giving up, but making space for higher intelligence to move through us. Imagine a river. When the current is too turbulent, the water turns murky and reflects nothing. But when it becomes still, the surface mirrors the entire sky. Likewise, when the mind stops being clouded by anxiety and calculation, the soul begins to hear what was once drowned out, the whisper of intuition. It is in that silence that divine guidance can enter your life. During a Jungian therapy session, I once heard the story of a woman named Amelia, the founder of an interior design company in London. For 10 years, she worked tirelessly, controlling every project detail. Success came, but so did exhaustion. One day, after losing a major contract she had invested everything in, Amelia felt she had nothing left to lose. Instead of fixing things, she decided to take 6 months off, not to escape, but to listen to what her soul wanted. During that silent time, she took morning walks, journaled, and emptied her mind. Then something extraordinary happened. The idea for an entirely new product line, centered on healing spaces, came to her in a dream. When she returned, her business flourished more than ever, with deeper meaning. She said later, "That silence was the turning point. I stopped running my company. I let it flow through me." That is the philosophy of the sacred pause, the moment when you stop intervening so the divine can act. Many think silence means doing nothing, but it is, in truth, a powerful, energetic state, a conscious surrender. Not surrender in despair, but in faith. It is when you say to the universe, "I have done my part. Now I leave the rest to you." And in that stillness, things that seem to be lost begin to be reborn, lighter, truer, deeper. When a woman stops, she is no longer pushed by time. She merges with divine timing, where everything arrives exactly when meant to. There, she ceases to be the planner and becomes the vessel through which life flows. She realizes that silence is not emptiness, but the background note of creation, where every idea, event, and opportunity gestates before taking form. A woman in her feminine energy knows that silence is an act of faith. She doesn't need to chase the flow, because she is the flow. When patience replaces haste and trust replaces control, everything begins to arrange itself. The right people appear, the right doors open, and what is not meant for her leaves gently, without resistance. The silence of feminine energy is not a void, it is space for the divine to work. For in this universe, Some doors only open when we stop knocking. Some answers only arrive when we stop asking. And some miracles only appear when we are peaceful enough not to need them anymore. When a woman enters this state, she no longer feels she must create success. She becomes the place where success naturally arrives. For in that stillness, she hears the deepest call of her soul, no longer from fear or ambition, but from harmony with the sacred. And it is precisely when she stops that life begins to move in rhythm with the universe. Number 6. When success becomes a sacred ritual, not just a result. Perhaps, after a woman learns to stop, to be silent, and to trust the rhythm of the universe, she enters another stage, where action and presence become one. In this stage, success no longer comes from effort or planning, but from a higher state of consciousness, when every act, no matter how small, becomes a ritual. For her, success is no longer a reward, but the natural outcome of living in tune with her soul. Everything she does carries the flavor of sacredness, where every movement, every breath has meaning. When she writes, she is not just typing words, she is letting her soul speak. When she teaches, it is not just knowledge she shares, it is awakening she invokes. When she cooks, it is not just preparing a meal, it is how she sends love and life force into the world. When she loves, she doesn't merely give, she joins the universe in its creative pulse. Carl Jung once wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. That is the difference between acting to control results and acting in rhythm with life." When a woman lives in her feminine energy, she doesn't act because she must, but because she gets to. Every action, however simple, becomes a quiet prayer to life. A woman once shared that she used to fear wasting time. She planned every hour, every task, every goal, yet the more she controlled, the emptier she felt. Then, during a trip, she stayed in a small mountain monastery. There the nuns did everything slowly, washing dishes in silence, sweeping the yard mindfully, arranging flowers without a word. At first she found it strange. Why so slow? But soon she realized that within each movement was a calm energy she had never felt, the energy of presence. She said, "They didn't work to finish the task. They worked as if each act was a thank you to life." From that moment, she changed her way of living. She no longer saw success as something to conquer, but as something that reveals itself when one is fully present. And strangely, once she stopped trying to optimize time, her work grew faster, her relationships smoother, and her mind more peaceful than ever. That is the secret of the sacred ritual in feminine energy. When a woman brings meditative awareness into action, she turns daily tasks into ceremonies, connecting her with the soul. Jung called this the union of consciousness and the unconscious, the state where nothing is driven by fear or ambition, but guided by deeper intelligence. In the modern world, we have lost that link. We eat without tasting, speak without listening, act without feeling. Thus, success becomes a hollow race, fast, loud, but never fulfilling. The woman who returns to feminine energy relearns the lost art, the art of presence. She doesn't seek to do more, but to be more deeply. And when she is truly present, everything she touches becomes infused with soul. In feminine energy, success cannot be separated from meaning. Every step, every act, is an extension of inner order. When there is harmony within, the outer world aligns. When there is stillness within, the outside flows effortlessly. She no longer asks, "How can I succeed?" but instead, "From what state of being am I doing this?" And perhaps this is the deepest secret of women who shine effortlessly. They don't use strategies, they use energy. They don't control outcomes, they adjust their frequency. They understand that the universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to vibration. You don't need to turn everything into a grand project to call it success. Simply be truly present in what you do, writing a sentence, brewing coffee, or listening to someone, and that moment itself is already a success. When you act with love, gratitude, and awareness, life cannot help but respond with abundance. If this video resonates with you, click like as a signal to the universe that you're ready to slow down, to be more present, and to let success come naturally. It's not just a click, it's a gentle affirmation that from today, you choose to live in the rhythm of peace. Number 7. When you stop trying to shine and light finds you. When a woman learns to stop, to be silent, and to trust the rhythm of life, something miraculous happens. She no longer needs to try to succeed, yet everything begins to flow effortlessly. Better opportunities appear, the right people come into her life, and success seems to drift toward her, softly, quietly, without force. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The woman at this stage no longer tries to impress. She influences through her presence. Without speaking much, without proving anything, others feel her strength, a power born of inner clarity and peace. Imagine a candle in the night. It does not flicker wildly or call for attention, yet by simply burning as it is, it lights up the whole room. A woman living in alignment with her essence is the same. She doesn't strive to shine, yet light naturally finds her. Scientifically, this is not mystical. Psychologists call it emotional resonance. When someone is in balance, not tense, not fearful, not competitive, their nervous system emits a stable frequency, and others unconsciously sense it. That's why we feel calm around peaceful people, or uneasy around anxious ones, even without words. True success, at its deepest level, is not skill, it's frequency. A vivid example of such effortless success is Audrey Hepburn. She was never loud, nor did she fight for the spotlight, yet wherever she went, no one could look away. Not because of beauty alone, but because of the grace and serenity that radiated from how she lived. Later, after leaving Hollywood, Audrey spent her life as a UNICEF ambassador, traveling to the poorest places to help children. She once said, "As you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself, the other for helping others." That is the spirit of one who no longer chases light, because she is the light. Such a woman no longer asks, "How can I be loved? How can I succeed? How can I be admired?" Because she knows love, success, and admiration are not things to chase. They are natural consequences of living in one's true frequency. She works with focus, but without tension. She loves without clinging. She gives without calculation. She is present without needing attention. And these light things make her heavy in the hearts of others, with the gravity of depth and sincerity. When a woman reaches this state, what changes is not only her career or achievements, but her way of loving, living, and being each day. She no longer needs to control others to feel safe. In love, she doesn't demand proof, doesn't fear loss, doesn't try to make him see her worth. Because she knows true worth needs no persuasion, it is felt. A friend of mine, married for over 10 years, once felt her husband no longer cared as before. She tried to change herself, to be perfect, to regain attention, but the harder she tried, the further he drifted, until she stopped. She began spending time with herself, reading, gardening, cooking with joy instead of duty. She stopped demanding love and became love. One evening, her husband said, "I don't know why, but lately you have something that just makes me want to be near you." She smiled, knowing she hadn't done anything. She had simply returned to herself. That is the essence of true magnetism, not born of strategy but of peace. When you no longer need to prove you are lovable, you naturally become lovable. When you no longer need to prove you are enough, others feel your confidence. Just as the sun doesn't try to shine, yet all life turns toward it, a woman living as her true self becomes the center of a field of love effortlessly. Because ultimately, feminine energy doesn't chase the light, it becomes the light. Her success is no longer a list of achievements, but the peace she carries, the respect she plants in others' hearts, and the quiet, lasting influence she leaves wherever she goes. A woman living in true feminine energy is like an artist sculpting her soul amid a noisy world of competition and performance. She doesn't rush to stand out or strive to be loved, she simply becomes. Every pause, every silence, every moment she chooses trust over control is a gentle stroke that shapes her being, making her shine in a way no one can imitate. Her success is not loud, but profound. It shows in the way she walks steadily through change, in the peace that makes others slow down, and in the gratitude in her eyes when she touches life. For once, a woman stops chasing the light. She becomes it. A radiance born of harmony, not effort. If this video touches you, share it with the women you cherish, those learning to trust, to let go, and to return to themselves, so together we can spread that peace and deep beauty. And don't forget to subscribe, to continue exploring the sacred depths of your soul and the feminine power within. A kind of privilege that no one can grant you, except yourself, the right to become the person your soul has always longed to return to. Not a role, not an expectation, not a version of yourself crafted to please others, but your whole, deep, and authentic self. Within you lies a source of pure energy, a core frequency that can only be awakened when you truly choose yourself. And when that energy rises, life begins to realign. The body calms, emotions heal, intuition sharpens, and what no longer fits simply drifts away from your path without force. And you know what? What many of us reject the most is ourselves. We step back, make space, suppress our needs, pretend to be okay to be loved, to avoid conflict, to stay in familiar roles. But in doing so, we trade away the most precious thing we have, our true life force, and with it, our wholeness in mind, body, emotion, and spirit. This video is a call to return. Return to the power of choosing yourself, not as an act of selfishness, but as a sacred ritual, because only when you choose yourself can you shift your energy, and when your energy shifts, your life begins to heal. Number 1. When you don't choose yourself, you slowly lose yourself. When was the last time you truly chose yourself? Not with words, not with a New Year's resolution or a moment of fiery will after a motivational speech, but truly, in silence and awareness, you stopped in the whirlwind of must-dos and should-dos and asked, where am I in my own life? That seemingly simple question marked an awakening in the story of a woman who seemed perfect in the eyes of everyone around her. She always showed up, always on time, always helpful, always strong. But one night, after dropping off each family member, she sat alone in her car, her face reflected in the rearview mirror, and a small voice inside her whispered, "When was the last time I chose myself?" No one else heard it, but to her, it was like a crack in the glass of her life, breaking open a truth she had long buried. Her exhaustion wasn't physical. She got enough sleep, ate well, and practiced yoga. But still, there was a fatigue she couldn't shake, a kind of spiritual weariness she didn't know how to name. This isn't rare. Jung once made it clear that we are not tired from work, but from playing inner roles that do not belong to us. He wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Because of that fear, we wear social masks, the devoted mother, the ideal child, the exemplary employee, and in doing so, we lose our inner voice. That is the price of living outside of ourselves. Jung called this the alienation from the self, the true essence, when the individual becomes absorbed by personas, the masks we create to survive. When you don't choose yourself, you don't just grow weary, you start to fall apart. On the outside, you still smile, still reply to messages, still get your work done. But inside, there's a space that keeps expanding, like a room left abandoned. You try to fill it with tasks, with approval, with roles, but nothing fits. Because what you're missing isn't achievement or praise. It's alignment with yourself. When you live too long out of sync with yourself, the body starts sending signals: insomnia, restlessness, anxiety, and emotional numbness. These are not just medical symptoms, they are warnings from the unconscious. In analytical psychology, Jung described inner growth as the process of individuation, a journey where each person must separate from the shadow of society, of the collective, to recognize and connect with their authentic self. But most of us, instead of stepping into that journey, choose to avoid it. We confuse our worth with our usefulness to others. We're praised for sacrificing, for carrying burdens, for not thinking of ourselves. And slowly, we learn to call self-abandonment responsibility, exhaustion kindness, and resignation love. That woman never asked the question until she couldn't pretend anymore. But that was the beginning. Jung once wrote, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." In that moment of facing the rearview mirror and herself, she didn't just feel pain. She saw the truth. And that was the first step toward change. When you accept that you've abandoned yourself, not to punish but to begin healing, your inner energy starts to shift. Many still believe that choosing yourself is selfish, a betrayal of duty. But the truth is, when you don't choose yourself, you have nothing left to give. Love cannot grow from depletion. Jung understood this well when he distinguished between the ego and the deeper self. He believed that much of our inner pain comes from being out of alignment with that central axis, the place where one can be fully present with their emotions, limits, desires, and contradictions without denying them. One striking example of this is modern research on emotional burnout. Studies show that people who constantly prioritize others' needs over their own are more likely to suffer from depression and emotional disconnection. This aligns perfectly with Jung's view that what we repress in the unconscious becomes the shadow, the hidden side that silently shapes our behavior. When you constantly suppress your need for rest, your desire to say no, your feelings of hurt or frustration, you're pushing them into the dark. And the shadow doesn't disappear. It leaks out as unexplained fatigue, sudden anger, numbness, and the sense of being trapped in a life that doesn't feel like your own. Back to the woman in the story. After that moment of awakening, she began a simple practice. Every day, she gave herself 10 minutes to ask just one question. What do I need today? Not, what do I have to do? Not, what is expected of me? But, what do I need? At first, the answers were unclear, but slowly, clarity came. Some days, she needed silence. Some day, she needed to say something she'd been afraid to say. Some days, she needed to decline an invitation she would have forced herself to accept before. These small acts were the first pieces of the puzzle that led her back to herself. Jung never called for loud revolutions. He said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Every step toward awakening comes with a hollow feeling at first. Because when you remove the mask, there's a moment when you don't know who you are. But if you're brave enough not to rush to replace it with another, if you can stay in that space, something remarkable happens. Your true self begins to emerge. And that is the most worthwhile thing you can do for yourself, to return to the center of your life. Not to demand, but to live honestly. Baker, use as Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. No one can live your life for you. And if you don't choose yourself, no one else can do it for you." The journey home begins the moment you stop, look into the mirror, and admit, with all the gentleness you can muster, that you've abandoned yourself. But from today, you can choose again. No grand promises, no one's permission. Just one small choice, repeated daily. I choose myself, and I will not abandon myself ever again. Number 2, the consequences of not prioritizing yourself. Perhaps what breaks our hearts the most is not the moment we realize we've abandoned ourselves, but the moment we understand the price we've paid for that sacrifice, bit by bit, layer by layer. Because abandoning yourself is not just a psychological decision, it's a vibrational rupture that disturbs the entire internal structure, emotions, body, and soul. If something within you began to shift in the previous section, stay a little longer, because now we're going to look deeper into the real consequences of not choosing yourself, something Jung saw more clearly than anyone else. Inner collapse doesn't stop at the mind. It seeps into the body and soul. Have you ever felt this? The pressure to always be okay, to always keep it together, to balance everything so no one's disappointed. And then one day you notice, your breathing has become shallow. Your forehead stays tense, even when your mind is blank. Your body feels like it's carrying bricks no one can see. These are not random signals. Jung once said something that made the entire psychiatric world stop and reflect. Neurosis is an attempt at self-cure, just as any physical disease is partly an attempt at self-cure. In his deeper understanding, illness is not merely a mechanical failure, it's a rescue signal from nature, from your very being, trying to repair the discord between mind and body. Emotions are the first to suffer when you're no longer at the center of your life. And the irony is, wounded emotions don't scream. They're quiet, slow-burning. You find yourself getting irritated more easily without knowing why. You lose interest in what once made your heart light up. You see someone you love, but there's a pane of invisible glass between you. These are subtle signs of disconnection, where emotions are no longer heard, only managed, like a child told to hush while the adults speak. Repressed emotions become part of the unconscious, and they will guide you, then break you if you don't stop in time. Emotions affect the body, and the body never lies. You can pretend to be okay, to be strong, to need no one. But your body knows. It remembers every moment you swallowed anger for fear of being judged. It records every time you held back tears because it wasn't the right moment to be weak. And one day it will speak through unrelenting shoulder pain, a tightness in your chest when trying to please others, sleepless nights where the mind won't stop. In Jung's language, this is the shadow invading the physical body, the rejected parts of you finding a way to surface. You might go in for a health check and be told, everything is normal. But you know something isn't. You're no longer yourself, and you are exhausted in your skin. If you've stayed with me this far, you've probably already felt some truth in this. So, let me ask you, when was the last time you truly listened to your body? Not when it screamed in pain, but when it whispered something soft, like a gentle signal. Don't wait until your body has to shout, because the consequences of not prioritizing yourself go deeper than emotion or flesh. They touch something more sacred, your spirit. Spirituality is not some distant mystical concept. For Jung, it's the connection to your innermost self, what he called the self. When you stop living honestly with your emotions, when you deny your body's needs, you gradually sever the link to your soul. You start to feel lost, even when everything seems fine. Your life begins to feel adrift, without a center. You might be busy, successful, but it all feels hollow. This is the state Jung described as falling away from the individuation path, where people live according to others' orbits, disconnected from their depth. And he believed this was the root cause of many modern spiritual crises. Let me share with you a case Jung once described in therapy. A woman with chronic depression came to see him after years of failed treatment. She had no trauma, no tragic event, no material hardship, yet she always felt empty. During analysis, Jung discovered that she had lived her whole life trying to be the perfect daughter, conforming to her parents' expectations, rejecting her dreams, her feelings, and eventually, her soul. Jung helped her reconnect with forgotten dreams, with inner symbols, with the primal parts of her that had been buried. And from there, the emptiness began to dissolve, not through medication, but through coming home to herself. Do you see a part of yourself in this? If so, it's not to blame yourself. It's to understand. Your body isn't betraying you. It's protecting you. Your emotions aren't bothering you. They're calling you back. Your soul isn't lost. It's just waiting for you to remember the way. Reconnecting all levels, emotional, physical, spiritual, begins with a simple act. Prioritizing yourself as a sacred choice, not a selfish one. Because only when you choose yourself can you be a strong mother, a deep lover, a clear guide. As Jung wrote, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Wholeness doesn't come from denying pain, nor from faking positivity. It comes from embracing yourself, from the lowest vibration to the highest, and saying, I'm here. I see you. I will not abandon you again. And if these words have stirred something in you, leave a sign below, a personal affirmation, a story, a small decision you want to begin today. Because when you start prioritizing yourself, even with a single deep breath or a well-timed no, your frequency shifts, and with it, the whole world begins to respond differently. Number 3, the law of energy. The universe doesn't respond to words but to your frequency. When the body starts to speak, when emotions go silent, when the soul no longer beats in sync with the rhythm of life, it's not just a warning, it's a total energetic misalignment. And you know what happens when a system vibrates out of tune with its original frequency. It falls out of sync with the world around it. Life is not turning its back on you. The universe is not against you. What's happening is that you're emitting a frequency that no longer resonates with what you truly desire. The universe does not respond to your words, it responds to the frequency you broadcast. This concept, coherencia vibrational, or vibrational coherence, is not foreign to the analytical psychology of Carl Gustav Jung. Though he didn't use the term vibration in the physical sense adopted by modern energy fields, he stated clearly across his work that the personal and collective unconscious operate as a synchronized energetic system, where every choice, emotion, and thought impacts objective reality. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Jung wrote, "Whatever is rejected from the self appears in the world as an event. What you deny within shows up outside as circumstance. The universe doesn't punish you, it reflects you." Have you ever found yourself saying, "I deserve love," yet falling into relationships that drain you? Declaring you want peace, but still accepting appointments you dread, keeping people around who no longer align with you? That's because the frequency you emit doesn't match what you believe you want. It's not your fault. It's the natural outcome of living in inner dissonance, where the mind says one thing, the heart craves another, and the body carries an entirely different story. The story of a young woman captures this perfectly. For years, she lived by the belief, "My worth depends on how much I can give." She was always present, always carrying weight, always forgiving, even after every boundary had been crossed. She never said it aloud, but the universe heard it, not through words, but through a frequency of resignation, helplessness, self-erasure. And naturally, her life responded with relationships that only took and never gave. Opportunities came and went, not because she wasn't capable, but because the energy she sent out was, "I don't need to be chosen. I'll stay, even if I'm not valued." Everything changed one afternoon after a meeting that left her drained. She didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't tell anyone. But in the silence, she made a quiet vow to herself. "I will not give myself again to what doesn't know how to hold me." And something strange began to happen. Not dramatically, not loudly, but slowly things began to shift. The people who made her feel small started fading away. Her chest felt lighter, her gaze was steadier, because her energy had changed, and the universe heard it. Jung once said something incredibly profound. Perhaps you've heard it, but this time feel it fully. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Letters, Volume 2. In vibrational terms, what you emit comes not from declarations, but from consistent behavior. When that young woman stopped replying to messages when she didn't want to, went to bed early instead of pushing through, and declined invitations she once accepted out of fear of being left, she wasn't changing habits. She was reprogramming her energy field. Everything in life has a frequency. A lie has a frequency. A toxic relationship has a frequency. An action driven by fear carries a frequency. And when you live in contradiction, saying you love yourself while behaving in ways that betray you, the universe hears the static of that contradiction and responds with misaligned outcomes. It's like tuning a radio to 95.0 expecting to hear what's on 101.1. You'll never get a clear signal unless you adjust the dial. So, how do you adjust? The answer isn't changing the world. It's in one decision, the decision to choose yourself, not once, but every day, in small choices. It might be a deep breath when you feel overwhelmed. Saying no to something that weighs you down. Having a meal without phone notifications. Spending 1 hour not responding to anyone. These simple actions hold the power to recalibrate your inner frequency. And once you shift that, the universe has no choice but to reorganize everything around you. In the Red Book, Jung wrote, "The soul demands your folly, not your wisdom." Meaning, sometimes our awakening doesn't come from reason, but from doing something that seems foolish, like learning to love yourself. Something simple, yet for many, revolutionary. Loving yourself isn't about dressing up or taking selfies. It's about having the courage to live in alignment with the energy your soul needs to thrive. And if you're wondering how to tell whether you're vibrating out of alignment with your true self, ask this question: am I living as the person I want to become? If the answer is not sure, or not quite, it might be time to stop broadcasting the wrong signal, hoping others will tune in. Tune into yourself, and let the universe find you again, clearly, completely, without distortion. You don't need to do anything grand right now, but you can start with one small decision. From today on, I will only invest energy into what helps me grow. I will stop transmitting "I'm not worthy" through actions that betray myself. And if you truly want to witness the miraculous, try this every day for 1 week. Write down one action you take to choose yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect, just real. Then come back here and tell me, how did the universe respond? Because you'll see, when your frequency changes, everything changes. Number 4, the journey back to the self, Jungian individuation. When you change your energetic frequency, the universe changes how it responds to you. But that isn't just a surface-level vibrational shift. In truth, you're taking the first steps on a deeper path, an inner journey that Carl Jung called individuation. It's a process that not only helps you live in the right energy, but also brings you back to your soul, a journey no one else can walk for you. Individuation, in Jung's framework, is the process by which a person becomes whole, not by creating a better version of themselves, but by integrating all parts of who they are. Light and shadow, reason and instinct, societal roles, and the voice of the soul. In the relations between the ego and the unconscious, Jung writes, individuation means becoming a single, homogeneous being, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming oneself. This isn't a journey to become someone. It's the return to who you already are, beneath the dust of habits, roles, and the things you once believed you should be. But have you ever asked yourself, what made you forget who you are in the first place? Why haven't you been living as your true self from the start? Jung had an answer. From childhood, we begin wearing social masks, personas, to be loved, accepted, and safe. We learn to please, to endure, to not be too different. Slowly, the true self is buried beneath a constructed self, the one that can survive in this world. That's where the journey of individuation begins. When you start realizing that the self you're living isn't you. Are you being run by an unconscious archetype you haven't yet named? Maybe you're the pleaser, always putting others' needs above your own because you believe love must be earned through sacrifice. Or perhaps you're the martyr, endlessly giving, endlessly silent, hoping someone will finally notice and value you. Or maybe you're the rescuer, constantly trying to fix others, carry their emotions even when they never asked. These archetypes aren't wrong. They were once survival strategies. But if you let them run unconsciously, you'll keep reliving a life that isn't yours. Jung said it plainly. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to live that privilege, you must do something most of us were never taught. Learn to refuse the self that was programmed, to choose the original self again. And that doesn't begin with one grand transformation. It begins with small, intentional acts as a way of returning to your energetic center. You can start by learning to say no, not as resistance, but as affirmation that you have the right to protect your space. When you decline a meeting that drains you, when you turn off your phone after work, when you don't respond right away because you need to breathe, you're not just practicing self-care. You're rewriting unconscious code. You're resetting your vibrational alignment. You can also begin to set subtle but clear boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are conscious gates. They don't say, I'm against you. They say, I choose energetic safety for myself. Jung believed that all inner transformation begins with awareness, and boundaries are the physical manifestation of that awareness. When you draw a line, you're not just protecting yourself. You're broadcasting to the world, through your frequency, that you deserve to be treated with respect, not because you earned it, but because you exist as you are. A powerful application of individuation in everyday life is doing small things just for yourself, regularly, fully, without justification. It might be 15 quiet minutes each morning to simply breathe. It might be journaling at the end of the day, not to analyze, but just to feel. It might be letting go of a relationship simply because you know that energy no longer helps you grow. These small acts, over time, rebuild the architecture of your soul, like drops of water gathering into a river. In Psychological Types, Jung wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases," meaning there's no universal formula for happiness or selfhood. Each person must walk their road, find the soul shoe that fits them alone. Individuation doesn't promise ease, but it does promise this: you will become real. I know, the path back to yourself isn't always smooth. You'll face guilt for saying no. You'll question whether you're selfish for putting yourself first. You might feel lost as you begin to release roles that once helped you survive. But you won't be alone. In the moment you choose yourself, you'll reconnect with a force that has been waiting inside you all along, a kind of wisdom deeper than fear, stronger than habit. The call of your soul. So, are you ready to begin that journey? Will you dare to release the archetype to find the self? You can start today, no permission needed, no approval required. Choose one small action to come back to yourself. And if you do it for 7 days, I invite you to return here and share what changed. Because, as Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And awakening sometimes begins with a loving no, a boundary drawn from self-respect, and a quiet minute where you finally hear yourself again. That's when individuation is no longer theory. It becomes the breath of your life. Number 5. Practice, energy rituals, and the return to self. Once you've identified the path back to your true self, the next step is not theory, it's practice. Jung always emphasized that true transformation doesn't come from intellectual understanding alone, but from a lived, embodied experience of the self. He once wrote, "Knowledge rests not upon truth alone, but upon error also." Practice is where you confront the imperfect, the hesitant, the fearful, and also where your energy begins to regenerate. You don't need to go to the Himalayas or perform elaborate rituals. The most powerful rituals are the ones you carry out with full presence. We begin with a simple but powerful ritual, like an inner compass. Every evening before bed, place your hand over your heart and ask yourself, when did I abandon myself today? Let this question take you back through your day, not to judge, but to listen. Maybe it was when you said yes to something your intuition said no to. Maybe it was when you smiled, though you felt like crying. Maybe it was when you kept scrolling to avoid the sting of loneliness. No matter how small the moment, write it down. Writing is not for keeping records, it's an act of energy reclamation. You're no longer running from yourself, you're turning to face yourself again. This practice is like meeting yourself each day. It opens the door to truth and courage. Don't rush to fix anything. Just acknowledge, yes, I left myself there. Truth has its healing frequency, and from the moment you see where you got lost, you've already stepped onto the path back. Next, take a deeper step into the ritual of conscious choice. In the morning or any time you face yourself, look into the mirror. Look, without judgment, without a mask. Look with the eyes of someone who has lived enough to know that staying with yourself is a radical act. Then speak aloud, in the steadiest voice you can find. I am my priority. I don't need to be chosen, because I have already chosen myself. This is more than an affirmation. It's a vibrational declaration, a signal you send into your energy field and out to the universe. When you say it, even in a whisper, you are rewriting years of living with the belief that others matter more than you. You are retraining your body, your nerves, your heart, that real love begins within. And slowly, change begins. Your voice grows clearer. Your eyes carry more depth. Your presence starts to shift. Not because you did something, but because you came home. The third ritual may be the most subtle because it relies not on words, but on the body's intelligence. Take a few minutes each day, especially when you feel unsettled or heavy, to sit still and bring your attention inward. Don't try to analyze or figure anything out. Just ask, what is my body holding and where? You might feel the weight in your shoulders, perhaps an unspoken responsibility. A tightness in your chest, maybe sadness. You haven't let yourself cry out. A clenched belly, possibly repressed anger. Jung once emphasized, "The body is the shadow of the soul." Your body is the most honest reflection of your soul. It remembers everything your mind has forgotten or ignored. When you locate an energy knot in your body, place your hand there and whisper, "I see you. I hear you. I'm not asking you to go away. I'm here with you." That gentle attention holds incredible power. Many believe emotional release means crying or screaming. But sometimes, release is simply allowing presence without judgment. And through slow breaths and still moments, the energy will begin to move, like an underground stream, finding its way through broken stone. You can pair this with visualization. Imagine gathering fragments of your energy scattered throughout the day. The moments where you tried too hard, smiled too wide, gave too much. Pick up each piece, bring it back to your heart, and say, "I call you home. This is home." Do this for 7 days. You'll start to feel it. A lighter body, a clearer mind, and most remarkably, a stronger inner voice. Carl Jung wasn't just a theoretical psychologist. He was a steward of living rituals for the awakening journey. And you don't have to wait for enough courage, time, or conditions to begin. You only need to choose one small ritual, a daily gesture that tells yourself, "I'm coming back." And if you've ever asked, "How do I truly change my energy and heal my life?" the answer isn't out there. It's in every moment you stop to look, to listen, to breathe with yourself. It's not something you have to do. It's an invitation. And if you feel that invitation stirring something inside you, try choosing a ritual tonight. Just begin. That's enough. The rest, energy will guide. And then you'll realize the journey of prioritizing yourself doesn't just change the way you feel about who you are. It shifts the entire current of life around you. You no longer need to strain for recognition or exhaust yourself, holding on to what no longer belongs. You begin to emit a new frequency, the frequency of someone who has returned to the center of their own life. And at that frequency, the universe hears you more clearly than ever before. Carl Gustav Jung once said something that still silences the soul with its weight every time it's repeated. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Awakening doesn't begin on a distant horizon. It begins right where you are, the moment you dare to look inward with gentleness, honesty, and a promise never to abandon yourself again. And if you've been waiting for a sign to begin, this is it. Choose yourself. You don't need a reason. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need anyone's permission. Choose yourself like a living ritual. Every day, one small act, one quiet sentence, one moment of stillness reserved for your soul. Because the energy you send out is not just vibration, it is the most powerful silent prayer you can offer to the universe. And trust this, when you choose yourself with full presence, the universe will choose you back in the way things start to fall into place, unexpectedly, precisely, and with quiet love. If you want to continue exploring your inner world through the wisdom of Carl Jung, subscribe to the channel, because what you're searching for within, we will begin to uncover together from today.